Hey y'all, welcome back. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about movies, running an online store, what have you. So today I want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. Scary stories to tell in the dark. Why, you might ask? I've had these for years. I used to have the other book in this series, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I could only find these two. I love these creepy stories and even creepier illustrations. So good. And every few years I come back to these stories because I forget some of the details here and there. And then when I reread them, I get creeped out all over again. They have the longevity that a lot of other horror anthologies don't have. So when I saw that they were coming out with a movie that's inspired by the books, and that one of my favorite horror creature creators, Guillermo del Toro, was going to be on the scene as well, I was very excited. And then I watched the movie. So horror is my favorite genre. I have to say that right off the bat. So most of the movies I watch are in that genre, and one of my favorite subgenres are the anthology based stories, like Are You Afraid of the Dark? I love when people tell different stories. Instead of focusing on the scary stories, our main plot line is about a teenage girl in the 1960s and her friends who on Halloween are chased into a creepy house where they find a creepy book who was owned by a creepy person, take the book out, and then one of them reads one of the creepy stories in the book and they start to come true. So we have the main story, which is reading from the book caused a chain reaction, and now the stories are being written and coming to life. This came out a few years ago, and I get that the fascination with vintage or antique time periods has not gone away. It's intensified over the past couple of years. But to sacrifice the story to make room for all of the details and continuity that you would need to add in order to make something feel authentic from that time period was doing too much. Clothes and the interior design, very well done. We get to see a town from the outside, from the edges of the town, getting into the farmland. We get to see the police station, creepy house. There are enough exterior details to build the world. Besides the lagging character development, which I know they're teenage boys and girl, but still, I mean, she has her writing thing. She writes scary stories, and that's interesting. Our main protagonist is dealing with a lot of guilt from her mother running out on her and her father. So sad. I didn't care. I didn't care. There were parts that felt more engaging and connective, emotionally, but even her school experience was just kind of vague and beige. Her friends talk about how people treat her, but we are not really seeing it as much in the movie. For example, one of them, I forget which one because they're kind of interchangeable to me, talks about how they're her only friends now. She was a very popular student beforehand, but there are no pictures, there's nothing to indicate that at all, including how other kids besides the bullies, which they're bullies, they bully everyone, so it's not surprising that they would bully her too. It would have been much more interesting to see her interacting with her peers, more of her peers, to get a better idea of what they mean by that, instead of leaving it very vague and undefined. And that is what I'll say is a running theme throughout this entire movie, is vague and undefined. weaving this epic tale, a small town scandal from like 50 years prior. This girl, Sarah Bellows, was blamed for a bunch of deaths in town, accused, and then taken from her home. We never see her as a person. We just see her as her ghostly, rage-filled apparition self. And apparently, she was so enraged by the injustice of it all, her being taken from her home and forced into an asylum, to force her to confess to the crime by her family, somehow granted her the ability to write them into a scary story and force them to live it and die it for all of the people in her family, which nobody noticed apparently. They all assumed that they just left town, I guess, because of the scandal. And I guess in addition to that, nobody ever found out that the mill was poisoning the water. Never came up that there were no additional deaths between the time that she was arrested. Guess nobody else died, so I guess they stopped using whatever it was. We don't really know. They don't go into detail at all. Relying on that like small town mentality of you're an outsider, so it would be more believable if people supported this whole thing deliberately because of their own like motivations. Like if she freaked them out being an albino and having this disease and all that, and they thought that she was like a witch for real, or like a ghost, a living ghost, or like a vampire or something, and allowed them to do this because of that, that would be very different. Sure, guy. Sarah's powers, which that is what they are. She's not just a ghost freaking people out or causing hallucinations or causing them to kill themselves. She is somehow has the ability through her stories to manifest creatures and otherworldly beings that can affect this plane of reality to the point where other people who are not the intended victims can see them, be killed by them, and other objects be affected by them. Where does it end? Because at one point we go back in time and somehow is able to transport people to see the world from her perspective at that point in time in the past, before she died and before she was arrested. Like when they're in the house and that one boy is hiding in the closet, and when he looks out, he is her hiding in the closet in the past, but he doesn't realize that, and he's able to see in this room and see what she sees. And just so many combinations of things happening, people being disappeared essentially. Like a couple of her friends get disappeared. Where did they go? Into some other plane of reality. What plane of reality? We don't know. Somehow Sarah Bellows, so enraged by her own death and the injustice of it all, excluding the fact that people were poisoned and died, and you have families that are mourning their loss, but nobody has suffered more than she suffered, and that's what we're supposed to believe. Ostracized by her family, which I wish they would have like intensified that instead of making it spooky-ooky. You know, just really dig into like her being alone all the time and how her family treated her, instead of just making her seem like they treated her like a weirdo, so she became a weirdo kind of narrative. It was just really lazy. I wish that they'd chosen other stories to bring to life, like maybe the drum or the cat's paw. That was a good one. The dog, the little black dog. Oh yes. Oh yes, they could have worked that right into the small town thing. If they had made it darker, grittier, not try to appeal to a mainstream audience by making it PG-13, just like kick that right out the window and really focus on the stories. So much potential, so much potential. And I really hope they don't make a sequel to this. I hope they remake the whole thing if that is in the works. The creature design was the best part about the whole film. But the stories are creepy and terrifying in so many different ways. And the stories that were chosen to come to life, they were creepy in the books, but the way that they decided to manifest them were more a little scary than like creepy and disturbing to me. But then I've read the stories and I knew how those stories were told, but the story just moved in a bunch of different ways that I didn't feel like were authentic to the characters in this story. There were just so many connecting pieces that were missing, and following the story all the way through to the end, which was predictable. I just don't see how it could possibly continue to go on. So I'd give it a 2 out of 5. I wouldn't really recommend it if you just want to see something like scary, spooky. Go ahead and watch Trick or Treat. Much better horror anthology. I would recommend Trick or Treat over this 100 times over. So thank you guys for watching and spending your time here with me today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time.